Vermont, 25 degrees below zero. Now these are the actual air temperatures. The mercury really plummeted this morning. Burlington, Vermont, 23 degrees below zero. Even Buffalo, western New York, the Niagara frontier, 9 below. There you see New York City, 9 above, but that tied the record at the John F. Kennedy Airport. Hastings, Nebraska, 13 below. So very cold air, not only across the plains here, but even across northern New England. Now you factor in the winds in northern New England, and it really feels cold. Feels like 16 below in Boston, but you know what? That's better than what it felt like earlier this morning. We had some 35 and 40 degrees below zero wind chills reported in eastern Massachusetts. It is 3 below. That's when you factor in the winds, what it feels like in New York City this hour. The big goose egg, Chicago, got a stiff north wind coming right off of Lake Michigan. A little bit of light snow we've had this morning. 23 below when you factor in the winds. Minneapolis, St. Paul. So you know it's cold, a winter storm. So we have cold air, brutal wind chills over northern New England, and we're dealing with the winter storm across the south. Now this frontal boundary, it's a long one, stretching down the Rockies, basically differentiating the warmer air to the west of it from the cold Canadian air that has built over the plains. And with this cold air in place, low pressure will develop along this front, and that's just going to enhance the moisture. Already this morning we have widespread rains from Atlanta back to Birmingham and Montgomery, Alabama. Even moderate rains been reported near Jackson, Mississippi. We've had some thunder showers around New Orleans this morning. So the moisture is already here, and as this moisture interacts with a colder air, and it's going to get colder, I'll tell you, over northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and northern Georgia, because all of this will move east. And with low pressure developing along this front, you get the counterclockwise winds around that low pressure. So at the same time that it's going to be pulling in moisture from the Gulf, it's going to be pulling down cold air from the north. And as it moves east, that just builds the scenario for some freezing rain, snow over northern Mississippi. Winter weather warnings, winter weather advisories have been issued northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and northern Georgia. And of course, as the area of low pressure continues to move northward, you get the lifting from the mountains, and the mountains can certainly pick up some heavy amounts, even around the nation's capital. As much as 6 to 12 inches are possible before all said and done. Now, so far the area of low pressure has not quite developed at the surface, but later today we think we'll be able to identify that area of low pressure and then pull it to the north. Now we think that it will eventually cross through central Georgia. That's overnight tonight. That's why we're expecting snows by tomorrow morning, certainly by tomorrow afternoon in northern Georgia. And at the same time now, the track of this low will eventually move off the mid-Atlantic coast. But as it does so, it'll bring in moisture from the Atlantic opposed to moisture from the Gulf. So as it brings in moisture from the Atlantic, we talk about our nation's capital, Philadelphia, Baltimore, getting the brunt of the very heavy snows. So there you have it, your snowfall forecast. If you're anywhere in this area, you want to prepare. It can be locally heavy, 6 to 12 inches. Notice the legend to the north, even over 12 inches. Some of the mountains here at southern West Virginia, the western parts here of the state of Virginia, right through the central Appalachians down to the Cumberland Plateau, even Memphis. You can see as much as 3, perhaps 4 inches of snow before all said and done. And there you see lighter amounts, northern Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. Light amounts, yeah, but snow nevertheless. So we do have some problems now. Wintry travel, where you see the white and the pink here. We even talk about freezing rain. We've had reports of already this morning near Memphis and Nashville. Notice how the white is being pushed farther north overnight tonight into southeastern Pennsylvania. And even on Monday now, we think perhaps some snow moving into New York and Long Island. A winter storm watch has been issued for this area because of the potential for the snows to be moving in. Here is later this afternoon. We think the area of low pressure will have developed in extreme southern Alabama. The cold air changing the precipitation now over to snow. Of course, it'll be heavy as you get into the mountains here of West Virginia and the state of Virginia, and even the northern mountains of Georgia over to the Delmarva Peninsula even. High pressure will keep it very, very cold because you know what? Even if we don't get any heavy accumulations of snows around northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, it will be extremely cold tomorrow, as we're forecasting highs only in the 30s, and those north winds will make it feel even colder. So even if you don't talk about snows and this winter storm over the southeast, it will be much, much colder than what we have seen. Meanwhile, we'll watch this next system over the Pacific Northwest, bringing snows to the northern Rockies, maybe some freezing rain over the valleys here east of the Cascades, but along the coast and west of the Cascades, it'll be generally rain. Seattle and Portland, very quiet over the southwest. LA today, 69 degrees and partly sunny conditions. Here is tomorrow afternoon, and there you have it, your low just getting ready to exit the coast, but again, very heavy snows with it. We'll keep you posted, so stay tuned to the Weather Channel.
News from the front.
If you live in Washington, Baltimore, Richmond, Roanoke, up towards New York City now, maybe even Boston, looks like this snowstorm may begin to track a little bit farther northward, and you folks could be looking at some very, very heavy snowfall, like around Washington and also Baltimore, into much of the mountains of western Virginia. Easily a foot of snow, some spots 2 feet, maybe even more than that. This is going to be a paralyzing snowstorm for much of the mid-Atlantic, and we'll have more on that during the next 24 to 48 hours. It's going to be a major winter storm. Here's a look at our current temperatures. Very cold across the northern plains. The temperature still stands at 26 degrees below zero. That's at Bismarck, minus 24, International Falls, Minnesota. Still below zero around Des Moines, Iowa at minus 2. We pick up some teens and 20s down towards the south. A freezing rainstorm right now around Nashville, Tennessee. Major icing is going on there. So Interstate 65 is not going to be you're not going to want to travel that interstate at all today, heading up towards Tennessee, or even 75 heading on northward into eastern Kentucky and Tennessee there, because you're looking at some major icing which is now beginning to occur. Let's show you what's beginning to happen now as far as wind chills. The wind chill still down to 17 below in Boston. It was much worse than that. The latest numbers now, Boston down to 16 below, but earlier this morning they were down between 40 and about 45 degrees below zero. Strong winds will be lasting there all day long. Tightly packed isobars, which means a lot of wind, and you're going to be looking at some brutally cold wind chill factors throughout the northeastern corner of the country, and also developing throughout the upper Midwest, where it's already very, very cold there as well. Our big system is now developing over the southeast. Let's zoom into it right now and show you exactly what is happening. We're still waiting for an area of low pressure developing somewhere over the north central Gulf of Mexico. Once that happens, it's going to rapidly intensify. That will happen later on this evening, and probably late tonight after dark. Then the snows will really begin to pile up across Arkansas, most of Kentucky and Tennessee. If you live in western North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, easily some very, very heavy snowfall. And right now it looks like the pinpoint for the heaviest of the snowfall, somewhere around Washington and Baltimore, maybe Roanoke and Virginia. And after that, watch out New York City, over towards Boston too, within the next, let's say, 36 to 48 hours. Heavy snow coming your way. New York City as early as tomorrow afternoon, and then it really picks up tomorrow night and early on Monday. Let's show you what's happening as far as radar. Here's a national view. We'll pick up that rain down towards the south. Heavier snow now beginning to pick up. Once again, over northeastern Texas, Dallas could be looking at a 2 or 3 inch snowfall this afternoon. You're looking at more snow across most of Arkansas, southern Illinois and Indiana, right through the Ohio Valley at this point, and across much of Kentucky, western Kentucky and western Tennessee. Freezing rain is now mixing with the snow. More to come during this afternoon. We're looking at some of that snow beginning to streak as far east as Roanoke, Virginia, also around Asheville, North Carolina. Heavy snow from time to time. Also a report now of some very, very light snow mixing with freezing rain and sleet in the extreme North Georgia mountains. Otherwise, this is all rain heading towards Atlanta to Anniston to Birmingham. That will be changing over to snow by early morning tomorrow. Looking back into Alabama and also into Mississippi, this is all rainfall here. Basically snow mixing with freezing rain from, let's say, Nashville over towards Memphis. All snow for the most part in Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, Illinois, and also Indiana. And that's all going to be tracking on towards the northeast during the next several hours. Also, something else interesting at this time, we're going to pick up some lake effect snows with a due north wind coming down the pike all the way down Lake Michigan. Heavier snow showers picking up at this hour around Chicagoland, over towards Milwaukee, Wisconsin as well. More of that to be redeveloping over northwestern Indiana this afternoon. So Interstate 65, I-90 and 94 can be kind of rough in the Chicagoland region. Let's go back to the weather maps and show you what's going to be happening. We'll show you what's happening at this hour throughout the middle part of the nation. There again you can see we're looking at some quiet weather throughout the upper Midwest, but it's very, very cold. The western part of the country, well, there is some rain now advancing eastward into Oregon and Washington, and of course some snow in the Cascades. But the big news here is going to be very quiet over the southwest, all the way from the Colorado Rockies to the Sierra Nevada of California. Quiet weather, basically no chance of any more snow for the next several days. And it looks like some mild weather too for central and southern California. Let's put your Weather Channel maps into motion. Here comes our storm system right here. It's going to begin to move its way on northward. Secondary storm should be redeveloping off the North Carolina coastline. The big news overnight, strong northwest winds across northern Georgia, Alabama. That means quickly rain changing over to snow, and wind chills by morning between 0 and about 10 degrees below 0 all the way down towards the Gulf Coast. It has now begun to snow around Monroe and Louisiana, so you can see the changeover is going to be quick once it happens over much of the eastern part of the nation. Forecast highs in the Saturday afternoon. One more balmy day for Florida. Looks like deep freeze tonight over much of the Tennessee Valley with the snow, and the forecast highs are right on Monday afternoon. Teens and 20s from Atlanta on northward. Somewhat warmer weather by Tuesday and Wednesday, but the northeast remains very chilly. That is for sure right through Thursday. And by Monday afternoon, here comes our big forecast. Watch out New York City over towards Boston and also around Worcester too. Heavy snows in the forecast. Could be near blizzard-like conditions.
Snow in Raleigh and Durham, and it looks like a doozy coming up for North Carolina tonight. Lots of snow coming out of this storm. The storm will track far enough south so that it looks great if you love snow and you live in Danville, Virginia, or perhaps Norfolk, Virginia. This looks like a pretty decent storm track for snow lovers as the storm cuts out of the Gulf Coast and heads towards the Carolina coast tomorrow morning. A little bit of snow and ice in your travels east of the mountains, through the mountain passes, through tomorrow morning. Hopefully conditions will improve by tomorrow afternoon in the mountain passes, but they may still be a bit treacherous as you're heading east of the mountains, away from the passes and getting out into eastern Washington and northeast Oregon. Blizzard conditions developing tomorrow as a result of colder air pouring towards the center of the storm, very gusty winds and heavy snow, which should last right into Sunday night.
Presenting the ultimate time.
a special edition of WeatherScope with the latest winter storm update.
Arctic high pressure combined with a developing low pressure area is going to cause one storm that we are going to remember for a long time. Good evening, I'm Rich Johnson. We are looking at the development of a blizzard along the mid-Atlantic coast. Right now the low pressure area is in southern areas of Mississippi, and what we should see over the next 12 hours is that this low will be heading toward the coast of South Carolina, North Carolina, then eventually off the Virginia Capes. That will bring very heavy snow to places like New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, and Richmond. Many areas will see 1 to 2 feet of snow from this one. Our latest satellite photograph showing the storm center. Actually, the storm itself, we do have a surface low pressure area which is situated right about over southern Mississippi and areas of Alabama. That low pressure area is predicted to trek right up the Carolina coast and eventually out to sea. We do see a jet stream, a very powerful one, which will dive down across the south and carve out a very deep low pressure area in the southern United States. That will bring us plenty of snow deep into the south, although by far the brunt of this storm is going to be much farther north. Right now we do see some of the snow continuing to fall into Arkansas, Tennessee, and into Kentucky. The heaviest of the snow continues in North Carolina and Virginia. The latest radar showing exactly what we have. We can show you the range snow line here. Essentially everything in North Carolina, then into North Georgia, then curving back into Tennessee. All of this is SNOW to the north. We are looking at some snow. Well to the south, some showers, even a little bit freezing rain. So we are looking at lots of snow right now. This is just the formative stages of this storm. Taking you to Denton County, Texas, north of Dallas-Fort Worth, a 1 to 3 inch snowfall causing some problems. In fact, up on Interstate 35, there were some accidents due to the slippery highways. Taking you to North Georgia already. Now, these scenes were this morning 5 inches of snow. The North Georgia mountains could see upwards of 6 to 12 from this one, but farther north into the North Carolina mountains, maybe 1 to 2 feet. Then that heavy band of snow certainly is going to be pushing into Virginia and toward D.C. and Baltimore. Well, what is going into the making of this storm? We have a strong low pressure area, and we are looking at a jet stream which is very powerful, and it is going to close off a low pressure area over the Tennessee Valley, very slowly lifting off to the north. This low pressure area is going to develop rapidly once it makes its way off the South and North Carolina coast, and should intensify off of the Virginia Capes. With the cold, bitter air in place, in fact, some of the temperatures in the -40s in Vermont today, that coupled with abundant moisture from the Atlantic, we are going to be looking at excessive amounts of snow from central Virginia all the way up across Maryland into eastern Pennsylvania and probably over toward southern New England as all of that moisture gets pumped in. So what we are looking at right now is winter storm watches out for New York City, winter storm warnings out for Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, down to Richmond. There's a good chance that we will see a very large area of 1 to 2 feet of snow stretching across the mid-Atlantic with extremely cold air even tomorrow making its way to the deep south. Some of the wind chills tomorrow will be below zero. So this is a classic nor'easter which is forming, heading off the mid-Atlantic coast sometime Sunday. With the details of the forecast, here's Janine.
All right, time now for a look at the forecast into Sunday morning. And what we'll see is that area of low pressure developing across Georgia and then heading out the mid-Atlantic coast. And plenty of snow with it, as Rich was telling you. Those snow bands going from the mid-Atlantic coast back into portions of Tennessee and into northern Georgia, northern Alabama, maybe even northern Mississippi too, but a lot of snow associated with this. Another thing that we want to warn you about, residents around North Carolina, Virginia, as this low pressure system develops and strengthens off the coast, those easterly winds will be wrapping on in some moist air, and that means, of course, that the middle levels of the atmosphere will get warmed up, and as the snow falls, it will melt, and then it will freeze on contact with the roads and your driveway and the sidewalk. So be very careful. We're expecting plenty of freezing rain and sleet with this as well into Sunday morning. Midday Sunday also through North Carolina, Virginia, some of that freezing rain. D.C. up to Baltimore, a lot of snow. Your local forecasts are saying 18 to 24 inches within this period through Sunday, and then on into later on into Sunday. Philadelphia, maybe even up to New York City will get some snow, but really we're expecting the big snow event in New York City on Monday, not so much Sunday. Look at this. Here's that Arctic frontal boundary that's pushed all the way far into Florida. Of course, the Arctic air will moderate a little bit. It'll be cold, though, into Sunday and Monday in southern Florida. As a matter of fact, high temperatures only in the 50s in Miami on Monday. Here's a look at that snowfall through Sunday night now, no longer Sunday morning. Through Sunday night, a large area of over 12 inches, and locally could even be over 2 feet of snow. But the snow is extending all the way back into eastern Arkansas, so a big snow event, and the cold air funneling on southward as the lows tonight will be in the single digits through portions of the Texas Panhandle, and very chilly air in the New England. Maybe we'll break some more records and on into the northern plains. You see the highs on Sunday not recuperating too much, although still got some mild air in Florida and into the southwest. That will change, though, into Monday. Once again, temperatures in the 40s for highs in Tampa, and that cold air will stay with us and support all that snowfall. Temperatures will be very slow to moderate in the northeast and through the middle Mississippi Valley because of all that snowfall already on the ground. But we do start to warm it up through the Gulf Coast on Wednesday, and conditions start to improve even into Thursday. It gets much, much better. Monday's forecast shaping up like this. All that snow along the middle Atlantic coast up to New York and into Buffalo, where we could see some heavy snow right up and around New Jersey into the city and Long Island. We'll be watching that closely for you here. Keep it tuned for further details about the development of the storm. On Tuesday, it looks like most of the action will remain along the northern tier and into the Great Lakes. Freezing drizzle for the Ohio Valley and into the northern plains. Wednesday, well, we calm it down a bit in the northeast. Most of the action going to be in the upper Mississippi Valley with some freezing drizzle. Then the showers all move to the east. Rich, will throw it back to you now in the studio.
As we've been reporting, the oncoming winter storm may be one for the record books. We have to look back 13 years ago to find another storm system that matches the one that we're expecting. The Weather Channel's Dennis Smith explains.
The blizzard of February 1983 will long be remembered. It caused major problems for the residents of the northeastern states. The storm started as an intensifying low-pressure system that took a track along the Gulf Coast and up the Atlantic seaboard and became positioned east of the Delmarva Peninsula. At the same time, a big Arctic high-pressure system to the north was funneling cold air into the storm. As a result, the entire megalopolis was clobbered with heavy snow and high winds. Many places received record amounts of snow for a 24-hour period.
I still remember it quite vividly. I was forecasting that day, and that evening, Allentown, Pennsylvania came in with a report that they had 5 inches of snow in only 1 hour, and it was at that point that we realized things were getting completely out of hand, and the storm was truly awesome.
The storm caused havoc. Schools, businesses, and roads were closed. Many people were stranded. The 83 blizzard will remain one of the biggest ever to slam into the Northeast. I'm Keith Westerledge, the Weather Channel.
Well, certainly that was a big one back in '83. Being from Baltimore, I didn't see that one, but I saw the one in '79, and we're wondering if this one is going to be quite as large as that one. It may be close, but maybe not as strong. That was certainly a big storm.
Well, everyone's asking how it can be compared with the '93 storm.
Well, that one is incomparable to. The '93 was one huge storm for the record books. Let's see what we have right now, Janine, and can you tell us about how much snow we've seen?
Well, basically, this is what we've already seen today as far as the accumulations. 3 to 6 inches in some of the mountains in the Appalachians and western portions of North Carolina. Asheville had heavy snow blowing earlier today. Winston-Salem also. And I believe right now Raleigh-Durham getting some pretty moderate snowfall, Rich.
Coming up next, we have our Eastern skiers forecast.
Dentuaries don't let
be crushed by this storm, even snowmaking because of temperature.